Why are you so terrified of your own empty company? It is a question that cuts through the carefully constructed facade of your daily benevolence, hitting the raw nerve of an unspoken psychological truth. You have spent years convincing yourself that your relentless self-sacrifice, your constant availability, and your soft inability to say no are expressions of a deeply moral and loving soul. But let us strip away the comfortable lies of your social mask. What you call love is often merely a desperate transaction born of panic, a calculated, unconscious maneuver to buy immunity from abandonment. You do not place others first out of a genuine abundance of spirit. You do it because the alternative, standing fully in your own unvarnished truth, exposed to the cold judgments of the collective, fills you with an unbearable, existential dread. The tension you carry in your chest at this very moment is the silent friction between your true, suffocating self and the heavy, exhausting mask you wear to keep the peace. You have turned your psyche into a public highway, allowing the moods, demands, and projections of everyone around you to trample your inner landscape until there is nothing left of your own authentic voice. Every time you smile through your resentment, every time you swallow a legitimate no to protect someone else's fragile comfort, you commit a quiet, localized act of self-treason. This exploration is not a gentle manual for self-care, nor is it a comforting pat on the back. It is a direct psychological confrontation with the shadow of your people-pleasing nature. We are going to unmask the hidden arrogance behind your martyrdom, dismantle the artificial structures of your social compliance, and force you to look directly at the heavy psychological price you pay when you give your soul away for the cheap price of social convenience. Topic 1. The tyranny of the persona and the mask of virtue. Your kindness is not a virtue. It is a highly sophisticated psychological defense mechanism designed to keep you safe from the terrifying labor of self-assertion. From the earliest days of your development, you learned that your authentic, messy, and sometimes destructive inner nature was unacceptable to those whose approval you required for survival. In response to this wounding, you constructed what I have termed the persona, a functional, polished social mask designed to meet the expectations of your environment, to please, to placate, and to secure a fragile sense of belonging. The danger, however, does not lie in the mere possession of a mask. It lies in your complete and catastrophic identification with it. You have worn the mask of the tireless helper, the saintly listener, and the ever-reliable savior for so long that you genuinely believe this shallow, accommodating caricature is who you actually are. When you look into the mirror of your own mind, you see only the curated image of the person who always puts others first, completely blind to the deep well of darkness that bubbles beneath the surface. This absolute identification with the persona creates a dangerous, unsustainable split within your psychological architecture. By forcing yourself to embody an unnatural ideal of constant availability and unceasing sweetness, you cast everything that is fiercely independent, aggressive, or inconvenient into the deep dungeon of the unconscious. You ignore the fact that the human psyche demands wholeness, not an artificial, selective perfection. By pretending to be entirely devoid of selfish desires, you violate your true nature every single day, turning your internal world into an ideological prison. Consider the physical and emotional exhaustion that tracks you like a silent predator at the end of every day. You tell yourself you are simply tired from doing so much for others, but this is a convenient rationalization to avoid a much more destabilizing realization. You are exhausted from the sheer, staggering weight of your own hypocrisy. It requires an immense, continuous expenditure of psychic energy to maintain a mask that denies your own basic human needs. The fatigue you feel is the desperate scream of your buried instinctual life, suffocating under the weight of your forced smiles and your immediate resentful responses to every text and demand. You are running on empty because you are fueling a theater production where you are both the enslaved actor and the anxious audience. This artificial harmony you work so tirelessly to preserve is nothing more than a psychological graveyard. True relationship requires two whole, distinct individuals, but you have erased yourself from the equation entirely, leaving behind only an hollow, predictable utility. You believe people love you, but in reality, They love your absolute predictability. They love the fact that you function as a reliable psychological buffer against their own discomfort. The moment you choose to step out of this character, the moment you let the mask slip and reveal a boundary, you will see how quickly their love dissolves into irritation and blame. This painful realization is the first cracking of your false reality, a bitter but necessary discovery that your prized virtue is merely an absolute submission to the expectations of the crowd. Topic 2. The shadow in the mirror of self-sacrifice. Everything you reject, deny, and despise about your own capacity for selfishness does not vanish. It merely retreats into the darkest, most volatile corner of your mind, the shadow. When you live your life under the absolute mandate of always putting others first, your shadow grows exceptionally dense, heavy, and toxic. It feeds on every suppressed irritation, every unvoiced grievance, and every hidden desire for power that you refuse to acknowledge. You believe that by burying your anger and your resentment beneath a thick layer of forced generosity, you have neutralized it. But the unconscious cannot be cheated. It merely waits for its moment to claim its dues, and a suppressed shadow will always find a way to express itself sideways, poisoning your life through the subtle, parasitic language of passive aggression. Look closely at your relationships, and you will see the fingerprints of your unacknowledged shadow everywhere. It manifests in the heavy, loaded sighs you let escape when you help someone. It shows up in the chronic, subtle guilt you deliberately inflict on those you claim to serve, making them feel the unstated weight of your immense sacrifice. You become the classic martyr, silently keeping score in an internal ledger that no one else can see, storing up a vast reserve of moral superiority. Look at how much I give, and look at how little they care, your internal voice whispers in the dark. This is the dark, predatory side of your apparent sainthood, a hidden lust for moral dominance that allows you to feel superior to the very people you are enslaving yourself to please. This dynamic is a classic case of psychological projection. Because you are utterly incapable of consciously admitting your own intense anger, your deep resentment, and your natural desire to put yourself first, you project these unacceptable traits onto the world around you. You begin to perceive everyone else as inherently selfish, demanding, ungrateful, and draining. You cast yourself as the perpetual, innocent victim of a ruthless, opportunistic world, completely blind to the fact that you are the one actively inviting, training, and enabling these people to drain you. You need their selfishness to justify your martyrdom. You require their ungratefulness to sustain the thin, brittle illusion of your own exceptional goodness. The ultimate breaking of this perception is a painful and deeply humiliating awakening. You must come to understand that your constant self-sacrifice is not an act of pure, selfless love, but a highly manipulative strategy to force the world into your debt. You give until you bleed, so that no one can ever have the right to criticize you, reject you, or hold you accountable for your own life. Your apparent selflessness is, in reality, a deeply buried, unconscious will to power, a way to control others by making yourself utterly indispensable to them. When this dark truth is finally dragged into the clear light of conscious awareness, the comfortable myth of your innocent sainthood shatters completely, forcing you to confront the reality that your inner world is just as conflicted, angry, and self-interested as the world you claim to transcend. Topic 3. The exhaustion of psychic energy and self-abandonment. Your mind is not an infinite, bottomless reservoir of goodwill. It is a finite, dynamic system regulated by the precise distribution of psychic energy. Every single thought, every emotional reaction, every defense mechanism, and every act of compliance requires a specific expenditure of this limited life force. When you live in a state of constant compulsive availability, you are essentially running a massive continuous deficit in your internal economy. You are distributing your precious energy to anyone who asks for it, or anyone who simply makes a loud enough demand, while leaving absolutely nothing to nourish, sustain, and integrate your own deeper psychological landscape. This is not charity. It is an absolute, systematic act of self-abandonment. I have written extensively that a psychological system cannot survive in health if its energy is constantly turned outward to the neglect of its core architecture. When you spend your days constantly scanning your environment, obsessively monitoring the emotional states of your friends, your family, or your co-workers, your energy is scattered to the four winds. You become hyper-vigilant, reacting automatically like an exposed nerve to every shift in the social weather around you. This leaves your inner world completely dark, unexamined, and structurally weak. Your internal functions, your intuition, your deeper creative callings, your capacity for genuine self-reflection, wither from starvation because you have redirected all their necessary fuel to keep the external stage fully lit. The inevitable consequence of this structural mismanagement is a profound systemic collapse that the modern world shallowly mislabels as burnout. This exhaustion is not a simple physical fatigue that can be cured with rest or a vacation. It is a deep, existential protest of the soul. It is the self-regulating mechanism of the psyche pulling the plug on your external performance. Your depression, your chronic lack of motivation, and that heavy, immovable grey cloud that settles over your life are not random chemical mistakes. They are the desperate, survival-driven tactics of your own unconscious. Your psyche is forcing you into a state of collapse because that is the only way it can stop you from giving away the last remaining drops of your vital life force. The breaking of perception here requires you to look directly at the sheer irresponsibility of your lifestyle. You pride yourself on being responsible for everyone else's happiness, yet you are completely, criminally irresponsible when it comes to the preservation of your own soul. You treat your life force as if it were a cheap, disposable commodity, throwing it into the bottomless pit of other people's chronic complaints and minor dramas. You must realize that your energy was given to you for a specific purpose, to fuel the monumental, difficult task of your own psychological development. When you throw that energy away just to buy a temporary, comfortable smile from a coworker, you are committing a profound sin against your own potential, trading your destiny for a fleeting moment of social safety. Topic 4. Projections and the enabling of toxic dynamics. When you consistently choose to play the role of the infinite giver, you do not just harm yourself, you actively construct a toxic, parasitic ecosystem around you. Relationships are never entirely one-sided. They are held together by a profound, unconscious choreography of mutual projections. By positioning yourself as the eternally understanding, endlessly forgiving savior, you automatically create a massive psychological vacancy next to you, the vacancy for a taker. You project your own unacknowledged hidden selfishness onto those around you, and in doing so, you unconsciously invite them, train them, and pressure them to act out that selfishness with perfect precision in your life. Let us be completely honest about the people you surround yourself with. You constantly complain about the narcissists, the emotional vampires, and the deeply entitled individuals who populate your life and drain your vitality. But you must ask yourself the terrifying question, why are they drawn to you like moths to a flame? They are drawn to you because your complete lack of boundaries, your immediate availability, and your desperate need to be needed are a paradise for their pathology. You do not rescue these people, you enable them. You provide them with a comfortable, zero-consequence environment where they can safely discharge their worst behaviors without ever having to face the painful, healing mirror of their own actions. This dynamic functions as an implicit, dark contract between your persona and their shadow. You say to them through your silent compliance, I will allow you to treat me as an object, to dump your emotional waste into my life, and to use my energy without limit, provided that you continue to give me the role of the good, innocent, and indispensable savior. This is the toxic undercurrent of your relationships. You are keeping these people dependent, small, and unexamined so that you can maintain your comfortable position of moral superiority. Your over-availability is a form of psychological codependency that retards the growth of everyone involved, locking both you and them into a stagnant, unchanging dance of mutual exploitation. The breaking of perception comes when you realize that your frantic, exhausting efforts to save everyone around you are actually a profound form of disrespect. By constantly stepping in to fix their problems, anticipate their needs, and shield them from the natural consequences of their own choices, you are robbing them of their own suffering, the very suffering that Jungian psychology recognizes as the essential catalyst for psychological awakening and growth. You are treating them as if they are fragile, incompetent children who cannot survive without your magnificent intervention. When you finally stop this performance, when you withdraw your availability and step back into a resolute, solid silence, you allow the toxic illusions of these relationships to shatter, forcing both yourself and them to stand on the raw, unadorned ground of your own separate realities. Topic 5. The fear of separation and the desert of solitude. Beneath all your frantic activity, beneath your desperate, non-stop checking of notifications, and beneath your constant eagerness to help, lies a primal, terrifying beast, the absolute dread of isolation. The core reason you cannot bear to say no, the reason you feel an icy spike of panic in your stomach when someone is displeased with you, is that you cannot tolerate the prospect of psychological separation from the collective herd. You have anchored your entire sense of identity, value, and safety outside of yourself, in the fickle minds of the crowd. To step away from that collective warmth, to hold a boundary that makes you unpopular, feels to your primitive ego like an immediate death sentence in a frozen desert. I have stated clearly throughout my life's work that the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming a whole, authentic, and divinely integrated human being, cannot even begin without an explicit, terrifying departure from the collective consensus. It demands that you stop outsourcing your internal authority to the expectations of your family, your friends, or your culture. But when you are hopelessly addicted to putting others first, you are continually fleeing from this call to maturity. You use the problems, demands, and crises of other people as a massive, convenient smokescreen to avoid the terrifying silence of your own internal desert. As long as you are busy fixing someone else's broken life, you have a perfect, unassailable excuse never to face the profound emptiness of your own. This frantic flight from oneself is a form of spiritual cowardice disguised as humanitarian concern. You run to help others because you lack the courage to sit quietly in a room alone with your own mind. You are terrified of what might emerge from the unconscious if the noise of the world were to stop. The realization that your life is hollow, that your values are completely borrowed, and that you do not even know the stranger who inhabits your own skin. So you continue to keep the noise level high, collecting obligations and dependencies like shields to protect yourself from the devastating clarity of self-encounter. The breaking of perception occurs when you finally realize that the loneliness you are running from is not your enemy, but the very crucible of your liberation. The desert of solitude is not an empty waste. It is a sacred, necessary space where the old, conditioned, people-pleasing self goes to die so that the authentic individual can be born. When you have the courage to stop explaining your absence, when you allow yourself to be misunderstood, disliked, or cast out by those who used to exploit your availability, you discover a terrifying but exhilarating truth. You can survive the winter of their disapproval. In that cold, independent space, free from the constant static of external demands, you finally begin to hear the deep, authoritative voice of your own soul. Topic 6. Reclaiming internal authority and the holy no. To break the chains of your compulsive availability, you must undergo a total, radical shift in the center of gravity of your entire psyche. You must rip your attention away from the external world and anchor it deep within the center of the self. This requires the development of what I call internal authority, the solid, unshakable capacity to validate your own internal reality, your own boundaries, and your own choices without needing a single shred of confirmation, understanding, or permission from anyone outside of yourself. It means moving from a state of weak, anxious reactivity to a state of absolute, immovable psychological sovereignty. The most potent tool you have for the cultivation of this internal authority is the clean, uncompromised power of a wholly, unqualified no. For decades, your mouth has been trained to say yes while your guts were screaming in protest, creating a deep, corrosive division within your mind. When you begin to reclaim your life, you must learn to deliver a no that is absolute, functional, and completely devoid of defensive explanations. When you turn down a request, when you refuse to participate in an emotional drama, or when you choose to log off and become inaccessible, You must not offer a long, agonizing list of justifications to soften the blow. The moment you begin to justify your boundaries, you have surrendered your authority. You are essentially begging the other person to review your reasons and grant you permission to take care of yourself. This new stance will initially feel like a cold, terrifying act of violence against your established identity. The old, conditioned parts of your ego will scream with guilt, telling you that you are being selfish, cruel, and monstrously cold. But you must understand that this guilt is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is the predictable, dying gasp of your old psychological conditioning. It is the proof that you are finally breaking the old toxic contracts of your life. You must learn to sit completely still within the white heat of that guilt, letting it burn through you without allowing it to force you into a retreat or a submissive explanation. The breaking of perception here is a beautiful, liberating paradox. You will discover that a resolute, silent boundary carries far more respect and therapeutic value than 1,000 hours of anxious compliance ever did. When you speak from a place of absolute internal alignment, without aggression but with total firmness, the world around you stops playing games. Manipulators back away, chronic complainers take their dramas elsewhere, and those who genuinely belong in your life adapt to your new depth. You stop being an editable, predictable object to be used, and you become a real, dense, and formidable psychological presence that commands respect simply by existing in its own truth. Topic 7. The illusion of conscious choice and algorithmic control. You like to flatter yourself with the belief that when you decide to help someone, when you stay up late answering a friend's crisis, or when you take on extra work at your own expense, you are making a free, highly conscious, and compassionate choice. But let us look at the reality with clinical psychological precision. You are not operating from a position of conscious free will. You are acting out a deeply grooved, compulsive script that has been programmed into your unconscious by decades of social, familial, and modern cultural conditioning. You are not a conscious agent of love. You are a predictable psychological automaton, reacting invariably whenever someone presses the buttons of your deep-seated guilt and fear of rejection. In the modern world, this internal vulnerability has been weaponized on an unprecedented industrial scale. You live inside a hyper-connected digital panopticon, engineered by sophisticated algorithms whose sole purpose is to exploit your psychological flaws for profit. The platforms you use understand your desperate need for validation, your paralyzing fear of missing out, and your compulsive desire to appear good and accessible in the eyes of others. They feed you a non-stop stream of notifications, social updates, and curated crises, keeping your nervous system in a state of chronic low-grade panic. Every time you glance at your phone, you are being subtly nudged to throw your limited psychic energy into the bottomless pit of public opinion and collective outrage. You have allowed your precious inner life to be hijacked by an algorithm that rewards instant, unthinking reactivity over slow, deep contemplation. You pride yourself on being accessible at all hours, but this absolute availability is not a sign of your great connectivity. It is the ultimate proof of your total enslavement to the medium. You have transformed into a passive consumer of external stimuli, running from one digital fire to another, completely unable to sustain the focused, quiet attention required to examine your own depths. You are living a life that is completely edited, tracked, and directed by external forces, all while maintaining the tragic, delusional pride that you are simply a good person who cares about others. The breaking of this perception is a cold, sobering slap to the ego. You must awaken to the fact that your constant connectivity is a sophisticated form of mental paralysis. You are not helping the world by being infinitely accessible. You are merely participating in a massive, collective, sleepwalking event. True psychological freedom requires that you break your addiction to the digital collective, that you deliberately sever the lines of communication that drain your focus, and that you reclaim the sovereign territory of your own mind. You must become a mystery to the algorithm, a closed book to the demands of the crowd, so that you can finally find out who you are when you are no longer being tracked, rated, and manipulated by a hyper-connected world. Topic 8. The sacrifice of destiny for social safety. We have arrived at the absolute core of the matter the ultimate and most devastating psychological invoice of your lifelong people-pleasing lifestyle. By choosing to always put others first, you have actively, systematically sacrificed your own unique destiny. The journey of life is not a pleasant popularity contest. It is a monumental, difficult, and lonely task of bringing your unique, divinely ordained psychological potential into full, conscious reality. This task requires immense focus, unyielding discipline, and often a fierce, uncompromising refusal to conform to the comfortable expectations of your environment. Every single hour you spend managing other people's minor emotional crises is an hour you've stolen directly from the singular work you were put on this earth to accomplish. Let us speak with total, clinical honesty about the tragedy of an unlived life. I have observed across decades of therapeutic work that nothing has a more devastating, poisonous psychological impact on an individual and on the children around them than the phantom weight of the life they chose to abandon. When you reach the final chapters of your existence, the world will not reward you for having been perfectly convenient, universally liked, and completely self-sacrificing. The collective will simply move on, finding new helpers to drain, while you are left alone to face the terrifying, mournful ghosts of your own aborted potential, your strangled talents, and your unexecuted callings. Your relentless availability is a deeply cowardly defense against the terrifying responsibility of greatness. It is far easier, far safer, and far more socially validated to spend your life playing the role of the reliable, ordinary helper than it is to step out onto the dangerous, uncertain path of your true potential. If you fail at being a helper, you still get to feel like a good, misunderstood martyr. But if you dare to pursue your true calling, you have to face the real possibility of failure, the agonizing weight of your own limitations, and the fierce hostility of a collective that hates anyone who dares to leave the herd. You have weaponized your apparent goodness to protect yourself from the magnificent, terrifying labor of becoming a whole individual. The ultimate breaking of perception requires a total transformation of your view of life. You must realize that your highest moral obligation is not to please your friends, placate your family, or make yourself a comfortable carpet for the feet of the world. Your highest, most sacred responsibility is to honor the specific psychological blueprint that resides within your soul. You must develop a fierce, uncompromising selfishness, a wholly protective egoism that guards your time, your creative energy, and your isolation like a mother wolf protects her cubs. You must be willing to let others manage their own lives, face their own suffering, and solve their own problems, so that you can finally turn your face toward the monumental task of your own transformation, stepping fully onto the lonely, magnificent path of your true destiny. We have traveled together through the dark, unexamined corridors of your benevolent prison, and the illusions that once comforted you lie shattered on the floor. You can no longer pretend that your constant availability, your soft compliance, and your exhausting self-sacrifice are signs of a beautiful moral soul. You know now that they are the chains of a deep, unconscious slavery born of fear. The choice that stands before you is absolute and terrifying. You can choose to slip the mask back on, crawl back into the warm, suffocating collective herd, and continue to give your soul away for the cheap price of social convenience until there is nothing left of you but a bitter, empty shell. Or you can find the fierce, psychological courage to step out into the desert of isolation, to hold your boundaries without offering a single word of defensive explanation, and to begin the difficult, magnificent work of becoming who you truly are. If this psychological mirror has broken through your defenses, if you have found the rare, uncomfortable courage to recognize the dark shadow of your own martyrdom within these words, do not allow this moment of clarity to evaporate into the noise of daily life. I invite you to take your first, small step toward internal sovereignty right now in the clear light of this community. Leave a comment below with an absolute, uncompromising declaration of your independence. Share with us the specific explanation, the old dependency, or the toxic demand that you are resolving from this day forward to meet with absolute, unyielding silence. Subscribe to this channel to join a small, fierce rebellion of minds who refuse to trade their destiny for cheap approval and share this video with someone who is currently bleeding themselves dry to keep a false peace. Your transformation does not begin tomorrow or after the next crisis is solved. It begins now in the resolute silence of your very next no